Hey everyone, welcome to the stream. Hey guys,
Okay, we're live.
awesome. Clash, how you doing?
Doing well, and yourself?
Doing well, man. We said we're gonna do this in a week, and it's only been like 3, I think. So that's for me. That's right on time.
Hey, a wizard is never late. You know, I've never been late in my entire life. I can attest to that, and so can my girlfriend.
We also have
Yeah.
Nani joining us. For those, hopefully everybody knows on my channel knows who Nani is, but she's one of our main raid leads, and that was in the boss. And she also, are you crocheting right now, Nani? You're usually crocheting.
There it is. There it is.
Always, always got something going.
Well, we were going to talk about some patch notes, man, and I think we basically were to the class section of our notes last time. I think that's where we kind of had to stop, and obviously that was a couple of weeks ago. We've gotten some more updates. Um, was it Necro Clash that you were one to talk the most about?
Yeah, I mean, as a necro main, thank you, Giraffe. Thank you for that. As a necro main, that's the one that hit me the most. It's been a while since we've been able to us necromains have been able to really kind of enjoy a full parse, uh, a parse DD. When I'm speaking about necros, I'm generally speaking about damage dealers. Most of my conversation is through the eyes of a damage dealer. I know you're a tank, and necros are still actually pretty good on tanks from what I can see.
Yeah, they're still in a really good place. Actually, I would say if anything, it's like a minor buff, if anything. So I don't think really anything changed. Same on the healer side. I don't think anything has changed at all. Really, I think it's just all for the DPS.
Yeah, necro healers have always been. I mean, I also heal a little bit. Necro healers are always just been kind of mid anyway. They used to provide a lot more utilization whenever empowerment was better. Well, was more for light attacks. I shouldn't say better. Was different.
Yeah,
Was different.
yeah. Well, and also like the empower ability, empowering grass, which I think recently actually I was catching up on stuff. I think Skinny Cheeks actually mentioned it, but it used to be. I mean, it looks so cool, like empowering
It
grass.
is one of the coolest looking abilities around.
Yeah, and it's like you put in all that work, you made this thing look so cool, and now it just kind of does nothing.
Yeah, and no one uses it. I mean, I shouldn't say no one uses it. I will use it as a tank in what are we calling it now? What archive? Infinite Archive.
Infinite Archive. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'll use it in Infinite Archive, and it because you can um it does have some pretty good utilization for Infinite Archive as well as the totem. Uh, what was it? I was using Ghostly Embrace as summon 3 patches. Oh, Minor Maim, yes, for Minor Maim, that's what I was using it for. Um, because Minor Maim is really useful, as you know, in Infinite Archive. It's Maim in general is useful for those ads, those packs, and it's. But that's pretty much it.
yeah. It's more of
I
a
don't even
tanking
think they
skill.
use it in PvP.
Yeah, you probably could. I don't know if anybody does though. uh,
Yeah.
well, yeah. Let's talk about the changes. So, main one here is that obviously the magical blast bones. Hopefully everybody kind of knows this, but we'll go through it briefly for those who don't. So the stalking blast bones, which is the magic morph for the blast bones, is now gone. So it now creates a blast bones, but actually jumps at you, and it gives you a corpse at on yourself, and then also dropped immediately on the ground, which was kind of the minor buff for the necro tank because you use those corpses quite often, and now they're even you get an extra corpse. for using that skill. So that's kind of nice. Other changes that they made here is increasing. So instead of doing that, it increases the damage of all of your Grave Lord abilities, then damage over time abilities. I will note in the newest patch, they have modified this so that now, in addition to providing that extra corpse, it also provides every third cast of your Flame Skull, so the magical morph of your skull, your spammable, also provides a corpse on the target that it hits. So this is their way of dealing with the issue with tether a bit. And then also in that morph was getting up to 20% extra damage, and they left it at 15 now. So the morph of this, the Stalking Blast Bones, being changed to Sacrificial Blast Bones does not, it only gives 15%. It's not up to 20%. And there's a few other changes that I'm sure Kalash is probably going to mention, but here, this 20% here that you can see on the screen, that's gone now. It's still sticking at 15, and they added again the extra corpse that it's going to generate a bit. They've also made the blighted blast bones. Woo, got to do my vocal exercises to say that too many times. They have also made that where it guarantees to apply the disease status effect, I believe. And so it does a bit more AoE damage. I think I'm missing a few things. I can probably pop over to the newest patch notes, but am I covering most of it, Clash, as far as the basics?
I mean, yeah. I mean, from where we left off, yeah, that was it. It basically, from where we left off, it was giving 20% more damage to your damage over time and Grave Lord abilities. I believe it was only the Grave Lord abilities, and now it's changed. Do we want to get into the new changes now?
Yeah. Let's just go and talk about it. Yeah, now it's all of your class abilities, right?
Yeah, now it's all of your class abilities, or all the damaging ones anyway. Because I think that only really
Fair.
includes one other ability, which is the Scythe. Because other than that, there's no other damaging ability that's a class ability. The Living Death line is all healing abilities, and then the Bone Tyrant line is mainly tank abilities, except for obviously the Death Scythe, which can be morphed into Ruinous Scythe or Hunger Scythe. So it makes it sound a lot better than it is, but all they really did was add in the Scythe to this. But I really liked that change. I think that I have that as right there. It's a plus on my notes. That's a plus. I think that's a really good addition to it. The Scythe was extremely underwhelming as a damage ability, and it provided utility and a little bit of survivability, but once again, it was just, that's all. And so that's why it was mainly used with tanks, and I can see why it's in the kind of you could call it the tank line, the Bone Tyrant line of skills. But now the one morph kind of is like a tank morph, and the other morph can be used like with a damage dealer, which I have used in several instances. Even now, I've used it in Basai hard modes to provide off balance for the group. If you can't get your healer is inexperienced and having trouble getting in with a lightning staff, and also you don't have Elisus on the character, having consistent off balance is really good in a high end group. Then you really they came in with changing the effect from 20 to 15%. I don't know why they did that. They must have some sort of spreadsheet out there that's telling them that if they add this one ability, they gotta bring it down. But then the best part, which was one of my biggest criticisms of the previous patch, that there was with the new blast bones, blast bones, sacrificial bones, there was no corpse on the target. So you were really you had to be within melee range from now on. They were really taking away the ability to use your siphon ability, which is one of the main abilities you have and it kind of it took a lot away from the necromancer. They fixed that with
Every third
the
cast, yeah.
yeah, with the addition to the flame skull ability. So now with the Gravelord's sacrifice, this morph now causes your flame skull morph every third cast to uh, deal their damage in an area, also an area of effect around the target, and leave a corpse. Fantastic fix.
Yeah.
Wonderful job. Love the idea. I had that idea with a few of my friends. I mean, mine was every cast, but I get it. We can't just be spamming, you know, corpses around. It's not like we're real necromancers. um, but that's another good fix. Um, I wish they gave a little bit more to those abilities with that. And there's a few things like the flame, the let's check out to see this. I'm pulling it up right here on my screen. The the ricochet skull. The ricochet skull does not do the ricochets of that skull do not seem to be affected by the uh
The buff for the
15%
damage.
damage
Okay.
buff. Now I believe that to be a mistake.
Like a bug.
I'm not sure. Uh I believe even Skinny Cheeks mentions this. Skinny Cheeks has a great video about this. He's much more well spoken and did a lot of testing on this. And also he has a great point where I think he was talking about how to really maximize the kind of damage you want from the AoE blast, you want to do your third cast not on your intended target so that it gets hit twice. So in other words, you do it on the target next to it because it has a blast radius AoE effect of like 6 meters, and it'll hit it and then get that second hit. Hopefully that bounce will go to that main
Primary
target.
target.
So
Okay.
which makes their rotation now more difficult because you're going primary target, oh, non-primary target to get that extra bonus
Well,
damage.
you mentioned the 15% seeming not to apply to the ricochets.
Yeah.
I saw that and I was like, oh, damage over time. It has been notoriously hard to do like a heavy attack build on a necro. Like they're just not very good. They do
Mm-hmm.
10k less than like a sork or something. And
Right.
and sometimes honestly, like I can't remember exactly. I want to say more than that, but I don't want to overstate it. But significantly less than you would have on a sork. And I was like, oh, 15% damage. It doesn't seem like it's applying to me. I would need to test more.
Really?
Maybe I missed something, but the damage at least has gone almost nowhere. I was parsing like 75k.
With
So
the lightning staff?
with the lightning staff, doing a heavy attack build with the Grave Lord's sacrifice morph, and
Very
you
interesting.
can get a lot of RNG, but that was with decent crit. It was so bad that I was like, I must be missing something, and I went back down the list and was like, okay, do I have all my, do I have food on? Do I, all the stuff you do on PTS to make sure, like, am I doing
Yep.
everything?
Yep.
But
Well, we'll have to test that side by side to the regular and the PTS, uh, because if you're right, once again, it's not applying to a damage over time abilities.
yeah,
That makes me wonder how many more damage over time abilities is it not going to apply to? Is it going to only be the necromancer damage over time abilities, or now is it going to be? Are we not going to have rune, fire rune continue? Is wall of flames not going to be
yeah,
damage over time included?
yeah.
That's a good point. I didn't test that.
It's interesting what you said about the like them reducing the fit to the 15%, and it seems incredibly fine tuned. I think that that's one of the things that we've seen over this patch is that all the stuff. I don't know if they have someone new working in on the on the combat team here or what, but it's incredibly fine tuned as far as the damage numbers they're going for, right? With all the changes, I think
Yes.
I think almost all of them, there might be a few things, but almost everything that they've changed, they didn't actually change any of the damage on anything. It comes from different sources. It works different now, but the total
Right.
number you get, would you agree with that, generally speaking, that pretty much nothing has changed besides the Arcanist going down a tiny bit?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't tested this, but I see what they did with the well with the Templar. Damage might go up a little bit with what is that ability? I just call it ROTL. Uh, let's look it up here.
Are you talking about Ritual of Retribution or
Yes.
yeah,
No.
or
Is it Ritual of Retribution?
I know they changed Power
Power
of the
of
Light
sorry, Power of the Light.
with
There we
the
go.
sundered effect now applying. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
So now, like like they added a bunch of those bleeds, which I kind of really like that they did that. But yeah, not a lot of damage has changed now. Although the Dragon Knight did get a sustain buff, which sustain equals damage. It didn't get a direct damage buff, but if you're able to just spam more high damage, high costing abilities, that just equals more damage. It may not be able to be seen on a dummy, but in content you'll be able to feel that, like if you're needing to spam. Let's see, was that one of the high costing? It's in Dragon Knight. Here we go. Deep breath. If you're needing to spam deep breath, all of a sudden your sustain is looking a lot better. You're able to hit deep breath a few extra times than you could have before you bottom out. Deep breath is going to do great in large AoE situations.
Yeah.
But you're right. Overall, I don't see much of a change in damage, which I kind of like that they chiseled. It's good that they're chiseling rather than just nuking. Besides nuking
I just
necromancers,
yeah, I just wonder. To me, and actually, I want to get Nani your thoughts on this because one of the things that Nani does is runs a lot of beginner groups, and that was in the boss, and so she sees a lot of more of the average player. Than maybe some of the rest of us that are sweating a little too hard, and you know, to me, like Arcanist right now, you get an Arcanist compared to any other class, and you gain 10k damage, or somewhere in that range. Nani, would you do you find somewhere in that range or?
Oh, for sure. Especially with the training groups. The training groups this year compared to last year are annihilating content. I mean, they're because the damage is so much higher. Um, we're clearing VHOF with a group of people that have never seen it before, first time through, just because
First
the
day,
damage is higher.
yeah,
First
okay.
day, yeah. And that's been consistent with all of them so far.
And that's because you have a bunch of Arcanists in the group, right? Not other classes. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that
Yep.
that's so to kind of take this to like a little bit higher level and not talk about the individual classes so much. One of the things that like we talked about, they seem to be able to fine tune all this stuff. Like they changed a bunch of things for Warden, for example, where they changed how, you know, Chilled is working. They reduced how much extra damage Chilled is giving specifically for Wardens in their passive, but they increased the damage from Chill and the proc chance of Chilled in general. Sorry, maybe not both of those. I forget exactly, but it ends up being that they're doing basically the same damage or very close to it with most of these things. So it's incredibly fine tuned. But then you have one class that is still continuing. Not only does it do 10k more damage than every other class, it's also a much easier rotation. And it also has, if you're running around solo, it also has all these buffs on it that you would normally get from a group. Oh, also it has an insane shield on it as part of one of your main damaging abilities. And also, like, the list goes on, and it's like, I get that it's a new class, but it seems kind of silly. And it's weird because they're kind of talking out of both sides of their mouth, because they were saying, hey, we want to, you know, get this narrower damage window and we need to reduce damage. That's what they were saying for years. And then they come up with the Arcanist that's blowing everything away. And I think that most of us, the thing is that some of us don't want to play an Arcanist. We just want to play the class that we want to play, and we also want heavy attack builds and other kinds of builds on more than just a sorcerer. And it seems like they're doing they show this incredible ability to fine tune the damage, that someone clearly understands what's going on, at least at this point, and yet they're not doing anything to actually address, it seems like, the concerns and the issues that people that aren't playing the pay to win class, it feels like they're not really addressing any of those things.
Yeah, you know, you make some really great points. I agree with all of those. They say one thing and they lead to another, which, I mean, is rough. One of the good things that they did with, let's say, the Necromancer recently on the most recent patches, in the dev notes, they said, hey, we understand this is probably still going to be underwhelming, and that this is not, this is not complete. Which I love that they're communicating with us now on these things. They're actually admitting, hey, this is not complete. But at the same time, when will it be complete?
Yeah. What are we waiting for?
Why are you saying, like, hey, we need a narrow damage, bring out something with big PP damage? It's one of these. It's like the left hand isn't talking to the right. Now, as a devil's advocate, though, this is good for the game. And we're talking about long-term game sustain. Just from a business point of view, we need new players. If we want this game to live as long as WoW has and continue on down this road and make you and I and Nani happy, we're gonna need these new gamers. We're gonna need them to come in. We're gonna need them to buy the game. And because there's going to be old gamers that, with every patch, it happens every patch, they get upset, I'm quitting, and leave, which is also understandable because there's a lot of changes on every patch. It doesn't need to be. That seems like there doesn't need to be a lot of changes. So I believe the Arcanist has done some good things for the game. It has an easy rotation, very easy rotation. I've taught people who were doing like 40k damage now hitting 90 k.
Yeah, you can parse 100 on a one bar.
They can't believe what they're doing, and then before you know it, with a little practice, they're hitting 100k.
Well, and I would agree, and I would say, I'm sorry.
That would be me.
Go.
Yeah.
Describing me.
Well, I would say that, like, I do agree that that's good, and I think that in a lot of ways, cool, we ran a test. What happens if we just give the players around 10k more damage, but honestly, probably more? On the low end, 100% more, except beam lasts for an eternity. My biggest complaint about the beam is that I can't tab out while it's going, so I can like do other things while the beam is still going. I literally, my wife was laughing because we're in a trial and I hit the beam and I'm talking to her and I take my hands off the keyboard. And she's like, did you just take your hands off the keyboard in VDSR? And I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, it's fine. I put my hands back on and, wait a second and then the beam's done. I like
got 3 seconds, 5 seconds.
Yeah. And I think that that's great. Like, all of us really want, for anybody who doesn't know, really want the game to be accessible. Just like Clash said, we want the game to be accessible. We want more people to play. It's not only good for us as people who play the game and enjoy it, but it's also good for those of us who make content, which is all of us here, right? For the game. We want it to be popular and everything. And I really think that we ran the test. We've seen that adding 10 to 15k more damage and making it way easier on the low end to do more damage has not broken the game. It has made more people have more enjoyment from the game. That's been my personal experience. Would you guys agree? As Inani definitely shaking her head.
Yeah.
I would just like to see. I would just like to see that added to the other classes. And when you talk about, like, if you want to compare Nightblades to Arcanists, or some of these more difficult to parse on classes, it's so much more difficult, and they still can't do as much damage. And so it's like, I want to play my class that I like in the style that I want to play. Why is it so much harder, and why does it do less damage? It's
Well, they could be going that
Head
route. I
scratcher.
mean, we could be seeing the first hints of it here with the Necromancer. As much as it upsets me, that could be it. And remember, we don't really know what scribing is gonna do, and the balancing of it.
I think we do.
This
Can we
could
talk about? We should move
this
into
could
that.
be this could be quite a bit of extra damage added to a lot of classes, because we see them already saying, okay, let's work on uh sorry, what is status effects. Let's work on status effects. Let's make this be a little bit more part of the game. It was kind of like a sub, not even a subgenre, but a lesser than sub part of the game. And people were only using it to like really min max, and now it's going to be much more active in the game and how you choose to play and what abilities you choose to do with scribing. That could they're clearly bringing that in to scribing and going to be morphing that with it. And now that they're trying to fix the hardest rotation in the game, necromancers, trying to make it easier,
I don't know. I think a
we could.
Nightblade might be worse.
Well, I
we
mean,
we can argue.
after
They're
this,
both they're both really
a
hard.
Nightblade might be, yeah. After this, a Nightblade might be worse. Um,
Well, let's talk about it. So, in my view, so when we talk about the skills, right? There's basically two things that can generally happen. Either they do more. So, for those who don't know, actually, I'll take a step back. Class skills tend to do more damage, and if they don't do more damage, they tend to provide some other buff or utility. Now, this could be like a Warden's Fetcher, right? Like the second time you cast it, it does more damage. Whatever it happens to be, it does. There's some buff to that thing, and the reason for that is because if it didn't, and instead the non-class skills did more damage, none of the classes would have an identity. And this is just a truism of the way things work and the way things, like, you could do something else, but the way things work right now, that's the way it is. If the class skills weren't better, then everybody would use non-class skills except for RP purposes, and no class would have an identity. So you need to have some class skills that are better. Okay, now we're introducing new classless skills, classes that are class agnostic, I suppose. Not to insult the skills. I'm sure they have plenty of class. So we're introducing them. The situation is either they do more damage, in which case everybody's going to be running them, or they don't do more damage, in which case it's just going to be a question of, do they add a little bit of utility? Do they add something else that a particular class is missing? And I think there's plenty of opportunities there, but I don't think it's not going to be a new game. I don't think that that's what's going to happen. I think it's going to be either it's going to do more damage or it's not going to do more damage. If it does more damage, we're all using them all the time. And if it doesn't,
right.
then it's going to be kind of like, oh, well, now we can have somebody else provide a buff that used to only come from one source.
Right. I mean, that's the name of the game. You're either utility or damage, and as much as as important as healers and tanks are, the real push in this game is damage. You need to survive less as a tank if people are doing higher damage. You need to heal less if people are doing higher damage. Um, if that's good or bad, that's up to the viewer. That I personally will always take more damage. I will want to pump it out there, and utility is good, and basically necromancers have just become utility. That's all they are at this point. But there's also classes out there, like you said, that have lost a lot of utility, and like Nightblade. Nightblade is only a healer. As a DPS, they provide no utility.
Yeah, I have a question for you guys. If you could have an option between, because we kind of do, I mean we don't, but in theory the game does. If you had an option between like each class having a reason to bring each class, or any class being able to do anything and being able to do any group composition, which would you prefer?
Ladies first.
Uh, I would like it to be you have multiple classes. If we're going to get a group together, let's make it a variety. You know, have each class bring something unique to the group.
I am all for that. I
Yep.
second that. Things need to be different. I want some uniqueness to my class. I want some uniqueness to my parse. I want I'm not saying there needs to be a even keel on everybody doing the same amount of damage.
Right.
Other classes can out damage, but I would like them to be closer. I would like them to be closer. But I would love there just to be
Every single
I
class.
mean,
I personally want every single class to have. I just didn't want to poison the well with my answer. I want every single class to have a unique reason, so that every single run you're in, you want, because it doesn't matter what class you play. Then everybody wants one of your class at least. And like you said,
exactly.
Clash, like if you're at least doing comparable damage at a comparable skill level, then it's like, well, I'm not going to be told that no, I can't bring X class, or I'm not going to feel like, even not being told, but just like showing up and it's like, oh, the Arcanists are doing all the work. I'm doing
Yep.
single target damage and it's an AoE fight, and I might as well not be here. Similarly, the empower buff, which is what heavy attack builds like require, there's a couple of classes that get 20 seconds of empower, and a lot of the other classes don't for whatever reason, and they get 10 seconds or they don't get it at all, and none of them are nearly as good. And it's like, why can't, if we're going to have this play style in the game, which I think is good for the game, why isn't it kind of shared around a bit? But
I just had
Yeah.
a conversation today with my Nightblade in my tri group. We're getting ready to move on to another. We're going into VHOF, and so Nightblade single target. She's fantastic, does incredible damage, but she's like, well, what am I going to do in VHOF? My AOE damage sucks. So
And even a lot of the newer trials require a lot of AoE. I think uh, every DLC has really kind of provided like these fights where you just need AoE. Maybe there's a boss, one out of a couple that you're looking at a lot of single target. And there is utility to having that single target, but then once again, Nightblades don't provide a good enough utility otherwise. Because you will see something like Sorks, who specialize once again in single target, but they do it better than Nightblade, and they're
easier to
providing enough.
use.
They're providing enough utility where you get the MK Sorks in there. Uh, but then you also have the problem with these where they haven't fully fixed the integration of what was it? Their integration of stamina and magicka, the hybrid integration where stamina sorcerers don't benefit from the minor passive they give. Stamina sorcerers, I'll say it again, do not benefit from the minor passive they give, because the minor passive they give is for magicka based
Yeah.
tunes, or if you have your, like the Arcanists do, if you have both buffs on you at all the same time, you'll benefit from it. You'll benefit from that. Um, just another thing that they're not haven't finished with, and I don't know if they intend to finish the minor passives with the classes.
Well, they
But
haven't.
I think that
Yeah. Well,
no, no,
they
you
haven't.
haven't said anything.
Well, they haven't finished. They haven't finished with the the whole idea of the stamina magicka dual spec meta. Like, they still haven't finished with that, right? And it doesn't seem like they are going to. It seems
See,
like,
and I don't mind the dual spec of the stamina and magicka, but like where you get these buff passives, and changing of the kind of meta is where the potions really
Yeah, the
matter.
potions. Yeah, you gotta.
And you're just like, you can't choose. You have, I mean, it just gets a little convoluted, and if you don't know, if you don't know the differences, you're never gonna. I mean,
It's one
a
of the.
lot of this stuff though.
It's one of the most
Sorry, go
common.
ahead.
It's one of the most common questions I get. Is like, hey, what if I want to change this to Magicka? What if I want to change this to Stamina? And I've explained it, and I've explained it, and it it's confusing, and it's needlessly confusing. And it's like, well, we made some stuff count. You know, it gives you both the Magicka and the Stamina buff of it, but some things we didn't change because it's too hard, and we don't want to spend the time and effort to change it. And that's what for me is really a struggle. So as we're talking here, I kind of have a fear that's come up as we're chatting here, because one of the things I see happening with the next, update 42 when it comes out is we're going to be able to run elemental catalysts. We're going to be able to run various buff sets, and the things that used to be reasons to bring the few classes that you wanted to bring are going to go away. Zenkosh DK. Well, now you're going to have more single target dots potentially that you can run on any class. And with Elemental Catalyst, you need to do 3 different damage types. Well, now we're going to have more sources of those damage types because we're going to be able to pick skills with those abilities. So is it going to be just, I mean, do we just stack practically 12 Arcanists in a run? Like, 10 Arcanists and like two other of either, Nightblade
For the minor passes.
yeah, for the minor passes, which for those who don't know, it's a Nightblade,
Minor and
DK
major, yeah.
give you the stamina versions, and then Templar and Sorcerer give you the Magicka versions, which give you more spell power and more critical chance, respectively, weapon and versus spell. And so it's like, well, if they don't do something to up the damage on these other classes, it seems like we're heading for a very reductive situation.
Seems like
Well,
I feel like we're already there. I mean, we've Arcanists are already taking over for Brittles. Excuse me.
One skill that
I,
completely replaces a Brittledin. Yeah, because it provides minor vulnerability and brittle 100% of the time. With one skill, yeah. They already have an ability that replaces a 5-piece set.
yeah.
well,
It's,
and an entire DD. And
Nani,
then
Nani,
when you were talking about, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say I see Nani shaking her head. I feel like Nani has more to say. I want to hear what Nani has to say.
Speak, Nani, speak.
Nani's holding it in. She's crocheting hard over there. No, I would love to hear your perspective though. As
yeah, I just feel like every raid I put up, it's, all Arcanists. And it's getting less and less of a variety. So I don't know. You were saying that, and I'm thinking, but we're already there. It's just going to
I'm
get
saying
worse.
I think it could get even worse. I guess.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
just feel like we're already there. And it used to be that it was a meme run when you had all of one class do a trial. And
Right.
now it's just every trial.
now it's a
And a meme
Tuesday.
run if you have, yeah, it's a meme run now if you have every class.
Well, and I
Yeah,
mentioned.
and
Go ahead, Clash. I'm sorry.
well, and for those who don't know what we're talking about, back in before they started doing a little bit more hybridization, blah, blah, before the hybrid classes, you used to stack. For example, you would have a Nightblade. If you had a Nightblade, you would have to have a DK. If you had a DK, you would have a Nightblade. You would have your whole group stack into stamina because those were the minor buffs you were getting to really min max. You didn't cross over. You didn't have a Templar and a Nightblade because those didn't really work properly with your with your weapon and weapon damage and weapon crit. You would have spell damage and weapon crit. But now with Arcanists, because they have these, you would have Camel Hunter, which gives you both major spell and weapon crit, and then one of the Arcanist abilities gives you both major and spell weapon and spell damage. You only need one or the other of either. It doesn't even matter which one. You could have a DK for the weapon and a Sork for the for the crit passive, and these passives used to be you used to have a lot more thought into your raid composition, and that's why I guess I'm trying to get at here is there was a lot more thought, there was a lot more I mean, I guess it was a little more selective, and it kind of made it slightly more elitist when you're getting into these upper groups who are trying to min max, and you got into these things where no, you can't have a Magicka tune, I need you to be a Stam tune kind of stuff. Now, that was still kind of fun though. That was part of the enjoyment is hey, we got a Stam tune trifecta over here versus
Yeah.
a lot of people were doing Magicka because it was just easier to deal with.
Well, and for those again who might not know and realize what happens, I see this all the time, and I know Nani does as well. When you run a trial, when a trial first comes out, I run it quite a bit, and I love finding strategies, and I love finding the strategy that will work the best for the most number of people with the least amount of experience. Okay, I find that really fun, and it's like how do we get this group of people through this piece of content with the lowest damage, the lowest experience that we possibly can, so they can still experience it, right? That's one of the things I love doing. And when we go in and I teach people strategies and whatever, after 6 months or a year, I haven't been running pugs. I ran the whole thing a bunch. I showed a bunch of people. I haven't been running it in pugs. I've just been running in guild. And I'll join an open run or I'll join a pug run. And every single time the strategy being used is the strategy for hard mode. And the strategy for hard mode is not the best strategy for 99.9999% of groups. And I'm not exaggerating that number. It's literally that few of people that should be doing hard mode strats. And they'll do it on normal veteran runs, even though they don't need to and probably shouldn't, because it's a lot. There's the room for error becomes a lot smaller. The exact same thing happens with group compositions. It's like, okay, the sweaty people are running this group composition, so I'm going to make my brand new group of people that are fresh to the game. I'm going to tell them, no, you can't bring the only class you've leveled up so far. You need to go level an Arcanist or do something else. And I have no idea. I wish people would stop doing both of these things, but I know that it happens, and we've observed that it happens enough now that we have to realize that's what is going to happen, and that. So the ideal thing to do for ZOS, if anybody's listening, is to instead make where, like we just talked about, where you want one of every single class. And that way, if someone is saying, hey, I play a Nightblade, I play a Sork, I play whatever it is, everybody wants one in the group. And so the buff needs to be unique, it needs to be universal, and it needs to be good enough that everybody wants it in an optimal group, because that will cause the lower tier players to still because I don't know why. I know it doesn't make any sense, but I promise you, I've seen it where they will require everybody. When I go to certain guilds and I put up a run, I only get Arcanist DPS. Because some of them have been literally told, we only take Arcanists unless you're a buff DPS. Now, that's not the case in a lot of places, but some of them, it literally is. And it only takes a couple of places doing that before everybody's just like, well, why am I going to swim against the stream? It's a lot easier to just swim with it.
Funny story for you, Knight. Last night, VHOF, and again, training group, brand new, going through. I teach slow strat. You know, the tanks take the chickens around the room, and we break shields and so forth. People had no idea what that was. People that had been in there over and over and over again with other groups had never seen that strat. So we tried the semi-burn strat, you know, one chicken at a time kind of thing, and everybody's dead again and again. So we went back to the slow strat. But to your point, people aren't really doing mechanics. They're just going in and killing stuff.
Yeah.
So I also appreciate learning the mechanics so that people of all skill levels can get through content.
Yeah, and
the most important part about learning these mechanics too is that will help you get to the burn stress. When you're doing these hard mode mechanics, you still need to know the base mechanics in order to survive. Otherwise, you just don't know why you're dying. You don't know why this is happening. You don't know why that is happening. You don't know why you're able to burn through a certain phase, because some phases you can't.
Yeah.
It's just I agree. It's sad that everybody wants to be the hard mode when in fact only 1% are really capable.
People are wanting to run before they can walk, right? They want to jump right in and
Exactly.
doing all the hard stuff, but it takes all those steps all the way along to build that foundation to learn how to do all that hard stuff.
Yeah, and this is the interesting thing where, a year ago they were saying, or not even 6 months ago, they were saying, we want to bring the damage down so that we can narrow this damage window because it's hard for us to design content that works. And I can already see this, like in Veteran Sunspire, the portal mechanic. There are now people that can very easily clear the portals on Veteran, but they can clear them so easily that when they have to actually do the mechanics on hard mode, because the boss has more health and because there's it hurts a little bit harder.
Everything hits harder.
Yeah, they can't do it, and it's like I try to practice. We just burn it so fast that I don't see any of the mechanics, and now I can't really practice. And so it's just really interesting that it's that it's the problem that they said they had and they were trying to fix, and then they kind of went a little overboard with the Arcanist. So I don't know which direction they should go, but I feel like having one class that is so outsized by everything else is kind of feels like it's not the way to go. I think we all agree on that as a community.
I think so
Yep.
too. And Sanity's Edge is a good example of that, though, because it's easier to take a group through doing hard mode on that second boss than it is to go through regular vet because things burn so fast. You run through the mechanics so fast.
They
Your
all
group's
happen at
dead because
once.
they're all happening at once. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I ran Sanity's Edge on normal for a reason. I won't mention this reason. But this reason ended with me having more gold. But we didn't know what mechanics, because I've ran it mainly on hard mode, and we didn't know what mechanics were on normal, like what weren't the hard mode mechanics, and we just blasted right through the first boss, and it was
Do you mean normal
gross.
vet, right?
No,
You actually
normal.
mean normal. Okay.
Normal. I've never run it on normal, and we didn't know if you need to go in the portals. Are the ghosts? Are they going to make the archers invulnerable? Found out they don't on normal. We didn't know if, and we didn't even realize that on the final boss, there is no maze phase.
Okay.
Or we just burned all the way through it.
Hard to say.
Could have been
Yeah.
either way, but
There is a nice face on normal.
Yeah.
They're see, and I never even knew that, and so they're trying, which gives a good point to, they're trying to teach you these steps, these in steps. They're trying to teach you these phases in steps, and it's good to go through normal content. It's okay to be going through normal content. It's okay to go from normal to vet to then hard mode, and try and learn as you go, and take those baby steps, and don't make those giant leaps unless you're in those groups who just make leaps. I mean, I'm 6'8". My step's gonna be a little bit bigger than yours,
Really? You're tiny on my screen.
Yeah, just a little guy on the PC.
Yeah, I think that's also, I mean, this is pretty off topic, but that's one of the issues that with it's interesting because I've had people who are programmers, talk to me and work for other game companies, and they, it's like if you have a game that you made and you put all this work and effort into it, and then you have like a large portion of your community not even utilizing a huge portion of your game, or not even doing the thing that the ultimate trials and hard modes and stuff like that are, and I consider hard mode dungeons as well in there, are like the the top tier of the game. And it's like if you have so few of people getting into that, you're making content for no reason. And what ZOS has just decided to do is we'll just kind of not really make content for that. We'll stop, or we won't really do it. So they don't really make much for trials, and they lean into the dungeon thing. But the cliff from going from normal to vet. I always tell people that normal trials are like, whose line is it anyways? The points are made up. The point. I'm sorry. The points don't matter, and everything's made up. It's just like, yeah, you go in, you don't know what mechanics are doing anything, and then people go into vet and they're like, oh, I'm dead. Why am I dead? And it's because and you can't really learn on normal, because what are you going to go light attack? That's what people do. They go in and you just light attack
Naked
the
runs.
whole time. Yeah, naked runs. But
I want to take a group through and just make them learn on normal. Be like, we're not gonna hit anything. We're gonna see each phase, and then we're gonna see it on vet. But I digress. I digress.
I got one question to end with you guys, and I want to know for update 42, what's the one thing you're looking forward to? What's the one thing you're looking for in update 42?
Ladies first.
No idea,
No.
to be honest. New trial, new content. I always like new content.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always up for new trials. I'm always up for dungeons. I am very excited to see. Well, scribing is not 42. Scribing is a little bit farther away, but I'm excited.
Well,
to see,
I'm actually saying for 42. I know we're still waiting on 41, but I'm curious for 42 because it is such a big deal.
Oh, for 42?
Yeah. Are you looking?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see scribing and how it's going to affect the game. And just in general, that is going to be great. I have a few pluses and minuses. I'll skip them all because we tend to skip. I write too much. I write too much content for our meetings. We got to do these more often. I'll skip to the bottom of my plus and minus list for the update 42. My plus is there's hope. There's hope for us. I'm feeling good. I'm like feeling hopeful. My minus is hope is a privilege of the weak. And
what does that even
hope is
mean?
what you're left with when all else has failed. Take it what you will.
Oh man.
I think it'll be fun to watch you guys that are so creative in the way you develop your characters, the way you play your characters, and the way you play content. It's going to be fun to watch you guys dive into all of the new possibilities.
Oh, just the combinations are already going through my head. I'm just thinking about it, and I hope maybe there is a grandmaster plan that these things are going to make our necromancers better. Hashtag buff necromancer. Make necromancer great again. Like we got to do this.
Yeah, never mind. I don't want to be a wet blanket.
Either way, I think this is good for the game, and as negative as I can be, I think ESO is heading in a good direction. I hope it doesn't veer off a path too much, because I think we're on a fine line. We're on a crest, when you climb a mountain, you want to get to that top. But it's very easy to fall over one side or the other, and then just ruin it for everybody.
All right, I'm gonna have to say something, because you're giving people hopium. You're giving people copium here. Listen, block isn't working. Roll dodge doesn't work half the time. It hasn't worked in over a year, and they haven't fixed it. And they're not going to fix it, either because they don't know or because they don't care. And when we see things like this recent patch where we see extremely fine-tuning of damage, clearly they know what they're doing. So it must mean, to me, either they're incompetent or they're choosing not to, right? It has to be one of the two things. And it seems to me like they're choosing not to. So until... This is the same thing that happens to everybody, man. You go through the arc, people play for a long time, and then the bugs eventually get to them. And they won't fix the bugs, and then people quit playing. Sometimes those people come back and they say, you know what? ESO is a buggy mess. It's just going to be a buggy mess. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to have fun. But the idea that there's some sort of master plan out there, that Rich has some sort of idea of what he's going to do is, man. I feel
Well, now you get my quote. Now you get my quote. The
Mhm.
plus is hope, and the minus is
okay.
hope.
All right.
I mean, you just fell right into it. You fell right in to,
Oh, man.
hope is a privilege of the weak.
But I think the main
We're
thing
here.
is I agree. I think the hope is that I'm still gonna have fun playing with you guys. Still have fun playing with all my friends, and it's the best thing out there right now, and you can't
The
really
people
beat
make
that.
it fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
You guys make it fun. This what we're doing makes it fun, and as long as we can continue to do what we do, we'll have fun.
Agreed.
cool.
Thanks for having me, Nairo. Thanks a lot for coming along, Nani. It's great to see you guys.
Good to see you too.
Really glad you joined us today. We'll have to do this again soon.
Say we
Please
make it
call
funny.
me up anytime.
Yep.
All right. Appreciate you guys.
All
Take
right.
care.
Good night.
Good night, guys. Hey, Jeremy.